Hi, everyone, and welcome to Brian's Horror Corner. I'm your host, Brian, and welcome to this Christmas winter horror movie review as part of my Christmas holiday winter horror movie series for the month of December here, 2021. Today, we're going to take a look at the 12th and final movie of the series. The one movie that's not as related to Christmas is the first 11 that I reviewed that are up on my channel. So if you haven't seen those, be sure to check out those previous reviews for the first 11. But today we're going to go ahead and take a look at the movie that I have on Blu-ray called The Lodge from 2019. Definitely a different kind of horror movie than the other ones as well, not just because it's not Christmas related as much, although it does actually have a Christmas scene or two in here. Part of it takes place over Christmas, so there's that. So it does fit in with the December series here that I'm taking a look at. Before I get started, I want to say I hope that everybody's having happy holidays. Everybody had a Merry Christmas for those of you that celebrate the Christmas holidays. Um, so yeah, let's just get started with the lodge here. Starting with the setup, the premise, and the cast, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review, which I'm going to try to keep spoiler free. It's difficult with this movie, so we're going to do our best. So, The Lodge is a 2019 psychological horror thriller film directed by Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala, written by Franz Fiala and Sergio Cassi. Um, the plot follows a soon to be stepmother who, alone with her fiance's two children, becomes stranded at their rural lodge during Christmas. There, she and the children experience a number of unexplained events that seem to be connected to her past. So that's the premise of the movie. Then the movie starts where Laura Hall commits suicide after her estranged husband Richard informs her that he plans to marry Grace Marshall, a woman he met while researching a book about an extremist Christian cult. Raised in the cult, Grace was the sole survivor of their mass suicide led by her father. Laura's death devastates her and Richard's children, teenage Aiden and young Mia. 6 months later, Richard announces that they will spend Christmas with Grace at the family's remote Massachusetts lodge to get to know each other better. Aiden and Mia uncover Grace's past, including video footage of the cult showing the deceased followers draped in purple silk with duct tape across their mouths reading Sin. At the lodge, the children act hostile toward Grace and refuse efforts to bond with her, even after Richard departs back to the city for a work obligation. Grace's unease is compounded by the abundance of Catholic icon iconography. Okay, I didn't know that was a word. Catholic iconography in the cabin, which causes her to have nightmares about her father. For after being rebuked for watching her shower, Aiden prepares Grace a cup of cocoa. So that's basically the setup and the premise, how the movie starts out, and then it goes from there. Like I said, I'm going to try not to give too much away. Cast wise, we have Riley Keough as Grace Marshall, Jaden Martell as Aiden Hall, Leah McHugh as Mia Hall, Richard Armitage as Richard Hall, Alicia Silverstone as Laura Hall, and Danny Keough as Aaron Marshall. Well, I believe that was her dad, or is her dad in the movie that we see flashbacks or video of. So, as I said, this is definitely a different kind of horror movie than your standard slasher, your blood and guts, or gore, or your even jump scares. This is not any of those things. This is a mind job. This is a psychological get under your skin kind of horror movie. Which I do have kind of a soft spot for those kind of movies because they're different and they tend to be pretty well written. Not all of them, but for the most part. So let's just get into my review and my thoughts about the Lodge. For the most part, I enjoy this. Well, for the most part, I can appreciate this movie and what they were going for. From a technical standpoint, this is a really, really solid horror film. And that's where we're going to start with my pros. So, all the technical aspects of this movie are really good, from the camera work to the look and the style of the movie. Very effective. It's very nice to look at and has a very eerie feel um, between the camera shots and the style of movie that it is. how we get different perspectives through the characters, the music. It all just kind of works to make for an eerie feel. Very effective camera work from the panning shots that they use to the overhead shots. It really adds to the tension and the dread of the movie. Also, you got to talk about the cinematography, which is wonderful in this movie. From the outdoor shots we get of the snow and the snowstorm going on, as well as some of the shots in different rooms inside the lodge. Everything is effective and tight when it comes to the cinematography and the camera work. So yeah, just from a technical standpoint, very solid horror movie, The Lodge. Um, and we got to talk about the characters. The characters are all really interesting and really well written. You're dealing with characters who have all suffered some sort of trauma that they're dealing with in this movie, and we see the different ways of how they deal with it. Not all the ways are certainly healthy, um, but it's very interesting, very intriguing, and definitely keeps you into the story. You aren't really sure who to root for or who the bad guy or gal is in this movie. It makes for a really nice, effective character study, quite frankly. Everything with the characters. It's hard to root for people in this movie because sometimes some characters are doing things that you can't root for, and then you end up rooting for them later, or you root for them early, and then you can't root for them later. So there's a lot of give and take here, so which is really interesting in a horror movie. I don't really think there is a good or bad guy or gal in this movie. I think that all these characters are flawed. All these characters are dealing with trauma, and they're doing the best they can with it, not making the best decisions with it. But that's what makes it so damn intriguing. You got to talk about the performances of the cast here. The entire cast does a phenomenal job in this movie. They really make these characters come to life in a believable and incredibly horrific kind of way. Definitely got to mention the young actors. Very impressed with Jaden Martell and Liam McHugh. Jaden Martell, I've seen. Obviously, he's in the new versions of It and It Chapter 2 as the young Bill, I think it is also in Knives Out, one of my favorite recent movies. So he does a great job in all of those movies, and especially this one. This might be his best performance. And Leah McHugh, who I really don't know that much about, man, when she cried, it was hard not to cry with her, or at least want to cry with her. She did a phenomenal job as a young actress in this movie. But of course, Riley Keough knocks it out of the park in this movie. She absolutely knocks it out of the fucking park, man, with her performance. A character that's not necessarily easy to play, and she just does a phenomenal job. She plays it sympathetically when it needs to be. She plays it really creepy. She just brings it all to this role, and just one of the great horror performances, certainly of 2019 here, by Riley Keough. Um, I really like the isolating setting of as well of being in the middle of nowhere during a snowstorm. Kind of reminded me of The Shining to a certain extent. At least that part did, from the setting and the claustrophobic, isolated atmosphere. Really enjoy that. I think that makes for a really effective horror movie. Actually, very effective story overall. Or I should say that it's very effective to the story and adds a claustrophobic and creepy feel. Also, this movie's really well directed by the two directors, Veronica Franz and Severin Fiala. They did Good Night Mommy as well, which I have not seen. I got to check that one out yet, but I've heard that that's very well directed. This movie's really well directed, executed the story flawlessly, and they knew what they wanted to say in a subtle way. There's a lot of layers to this movie. This is a thinking man's horror movie, not sort of the mindless Jason killing slasher kind of movie, and that's okay. I mean, both movies have their pros and cons, but I enjoy a movie like this from a make you think and sort of leveled horror movie standpoint. Um, the story itself is simple but really effective, I think. There's no supernatural element, no slasher element to this movie. This is as real as it gets, and therefore that adds another layer of horror to this movie. This is something that could really happen. I mean, it's not. There's no ghosties. There's no werewolves. There's no vampires. This is real people dealing with trauma being isolated and having to come out in a very horrific way. Have it go in a very horrific direction, I should say. Even though this isn't a Christmas movie, I am going to mention the scenes that does have some Christmas vibes, some decor going on to keep with the theme of this series. I've mentioned like the Christmas atmosphere in all the movies I've reviewed. So this one, it's very short and very subtle. There's not a lot. It's not comparable to any of the other movies really, but there are Christmas decorations. They are there over Christmas. So that has to be mentioned. And the little bit that we have is effective, I think, to let us know that Christmas is going on, taking place during Christmas time. Um, Also, another pro, the ending of this movie really is so heavy, and it leaves the viewer really feeling a sense of dread and having some questions, which I think makes for an effective horror movie in this vein of horror movie. Like I said, the sort of layered horror movie. A lot of questions, a lot of thinking involved. Some people say the ending is what's the word I'm searching for? Ambiguous. There we go. It wasn't such a long walk, now was it? I don't really think it's that ambiguous. I think it's kind of obvious, at least to me, what's going on, which makes it all the more scary and heavy. Talking about the last scene, of course, of the movie before it cuts to credits. Just a very effective ending. Almost a little too. I don't know if it's almost depressing and really sad and just kind of it's a gut punch kind of ending. It takes a little out of you. Um, and then my final pro, you got to talk. You can't talk about this movie without talking about the score and the music cues that are used. It isn't an overly scoring movie in terms of like a lot of music or anything, but what they use is very effective for this type of movie. Adds a real sense of tension and heaviness that is needed for what's going on for most of this movie. And then, of course, we get the one song that she sings at the end. She sings, and the Grace, meaning her, and the children start singing at the end. Oh shoot, the name of the song? It's a pretty well known Catholic or Christian hymn. I can't think of it right now, but most of you, I could look it up. But yeah, that's just very effective, very creepy at the end. So those are all my pros for The Lodge. As you could tell, I really appreciated and liked the movie. That's not to say that it doesn't have its cons. Couple cons. It is a slow burn type of horror movie, which I know does not work for everyone. I don't mind it, especially if there's a good payoff, which I feel that there is in this movie, but it won't be for everyone. It won't work for everyone. It's definitely not a traditional horror movie in the sense of blood and gore and jump scares. So if that's what you're looking for, you're probably not going to like it a whole lot. This movie's all about being under the surface. It's psychological. It's a mind fuck, basically. There are a few scenes in the middle of the movie too that I thought kind of dragged a little bit more than they necessarily needed to. Kind of felt a bit unnecessary. Um, One big con I have has to do with some plot contrivances and conveniences that are in the movie. The one big one is the one that the idea that this dad would leave these two kids with this woman who they don't know and like. He doesn't know all that well. I mean, he's dating her, but they're not married or anything, and he knows her past. And given the trauma that they just suffered with losing their mom, it just feels a little contrived that he would. And I understand he had to go away for work and stuff, but I mean, there's ways around that. I don't know that was a little hard to grasp from a logical standpoint. Given her past more than anything, just doesn't make a lot of logical sense, and you just kind of have to go with it whether you want to or not. Um, Another thing, and other people have talked about this, it's not exactly a fun horror movie to watch. Now, some people would say, well, horror movies they're not necessarily fun. I disagree with that. There are a lot of fun horror movies. At least 10 off the top of my head I could think of. The one that comes to mind for whatever reason right now is something like Creep Show or you know, Night of the Creeps or why can't I think of the one that I'm trying to think of? About the vampire. Fright Night. That's a fun horror movie. So there's lots of fun horror movies. So I don't agree that horror movies aren't fun. I guess a better way to say it is this isn't exactly a go-to horror movie. If I had a bunch of friends over, a bunch of guys and some beers, this is not a movie I would put on if we were going to watch have sort of a horror theme night or like a horror marathon. Because it's not exactly a fun horror movie to watch. It's really heavy subject matter, really dramatic, really sad and depressing in a lot of ways. And it's just kind of hard to view with sort of any glee watching it. Now, that's not to say that you can't watch it and appreciate what they were going for and have it be an effective horror movie, especially really appreciate all the technical aspects of this movie. But like I said, for just a fun horror movie to put on as part of a marathon, it really isn't. And then that goes to my last little con, which is it doesn't have a lot of rewatchable value. Once you kind of seen it and you kind of know the twist and the ending of the movie and the direction that they go in with it. One thing about this movie too that I had mentioned, it does kind of take you in some different directions, which is kind of fun. You think you know it's going to go one way, and you're not quite sure. You're kind of like the characters guessing, is this really going on, or and then you kind of learn about one thing which in some ways could be kind of a letdown, but because of where it goes after that, it really isn't. And so, yeah, it's got a lot going on there. But like I said, rewatch from a rewatchable standpoint. Once you've seen it once or twice, it doesn't have as high of rewatchable. But that's not to say that I can't and won't rewatch it again. But yeah, those are my pros and cons, guys, for the Lodge. Overall, like I said, from the technical aspects, it's so well acted with very interesting and intriguing, flawed characters, very well written, well directed, great looking movie with good music. I mean, from a technical standpoint, I can't praise this movie high enough. As the story itself goes, it's very interesting with sort of a Christian cult um, callback. Um, it's got a lot going on in the movie. It's very heavy, not easy to get through all the time. But it's a really good horror movie, much in the same way as something like Hereditary, or some other movies of recent vintage. So for what it is, I'm going to give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's really solid. I would recommend watching it, but it's not going to be for everybody, and it is a heavy watch. Can be hard to get through if you're in the wrong mood for it. So make sure you're doing well the day that you watch it from an emotional and mental standpoint. That's all I'll say. So, 8.5 out of 10 for The Lodge. That's going to conclude this particular series. I hope you enjoyed this Christmas holiday winter horror movie series for the month of December. I really enjoyed filming it. A lot of these movies were first time watches for me. Um, so it was fun to go through. I'll be interested to see when I watch them again. I'll probably do something similar to this. It won't be exactly the same next Christmas or next holiday season. I'm sure I'll have some other holiday Christmas movies that I didn't include in this series. I already have one, which is Don't Open Till Christmas. That'll definitely be coming up in 2022. But thank you for watching this entire series. Thanks for watching this review video for The Lodge. I hope you liked it. Please like this video and hit the notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming horror content. And on that note, stay tuned the next couple days. I'll be dropping a preview video for what I have coming up right after the new year for the month of January 2022. So that'll be coming up by the 31st. So that puts a bow on this series, though, no pun intended. Thank you for watching. Hope everybody has a happy holiday, continues to have a happy holiday, and happy new year to everybody. Thanks for watching. Stay scared. Bye.